Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of my video sailing course. In this video I give you an introduction into the theory behind sailing and show you why a sailboat is moving forward. You'll find everything I explain in this video also in my book, Learn to Sail with Captain Sailnator. In the book I describe everything step by step and explain all the facts by drawings and diagrams that I could not show in this video. The theory behind sailing covers a wide range and I only give you a brief overview in this video to convey the essential basics. For a deeper insight into the matter, I really recommend to buy my book. A link can be found in the video description below. The question is, how does sailing actually work? Why is the boat moving forward? There are two acting forces, thrust forward by resistance and thrust forward by lift. By using thrust forward by lift, the sails are shaped like an airplane wing and also work the same way. The wind that flows along the sails generates this buoyancy. And how this is converted into forward motion, I'll explain in a minute. Easier to understand is thrust by resistance. The sails are put in front of the wind and offer it this resistance. The wind blows in the sails from behind and pushes the boat forward. Just like if you open an umbrella with your back to the wind and been pulled forward. When the stern of the boat points into the wind and the sails are left and right of the mast, the resistance they offer is the greatest. But thrust by resistance does not only work when the wind blows exactly from behind, but even if the boat turns a bit to the side and the wind is blowing diagonal from behind. Then the sails have to be trimmed so that they can catch the wind optimally. If the bow continues to turn towards the wind, at some point it's changing from thrust by resistance to thrust by lift. And while the boat is still moving forward and not being pushed to the side into the direction the wind blows, I explain now. The closer the bow turns to the wind, the tighter the sails are hauled. They are arching to the direction the wind blows, and from above that looks like an airplane wing. And just like there, lift will be generated at the sails. The sails have a side facing the windward side, and a side facing away from the wind, the leeward side. Because of the vault, the wind runs along the sails at different speeds, which causes pressure differences. The airflow at the windward side is delayed and the wind at the leeward side is accelerated. The resulting overpressure on the windward side and the negative pressure created on the leeward side act as total force in the same direction. It creates lift transverse to the direction of the wind. The total force and thus the lift gets lower the further the bow turns to the wind, and then it's actually too weak to let the boat sail forward. That's why the boat would just be pushed downwind if there wasn't the lateral plan. It creates a resistance against the drift. At a floating boat, this red area would be normally underwater. The sideward underwater hull, so what you can see from the side underwater from hull, centerboard and rudder, is called lateral plan. The lateral plan forms the lateral pressure together with the water that pushes against the hull. That is the resistance with which the boat converts the transversal total force of the lift, partly in propulsion, so that the boat can sail forward. The total force is divided into propulsion and the lateral force that arises because the wind blows sideways into the sails. As a result, the boat leans to the direction the wind blows, it heels, and in addition to that there is the drift. Therefore, only very little propulsion is gained from these forces. Without the lateral plan, there would be no propulsion at all. The farther the bow turns away from the wind, the less the lateral force acts. Thereby also heeling and drift get weaker and the propulsion grows. That's why you sail the fastest if the wind comes diagonal from behind. So what we can remember is, there is a thrust forward by lift and a thrust forward by resistance. The closer the bow turns to the wind, the lower is the thrust by lift because the lateral force increases. The further we bear away from the wind, the transverse force decreases and the propulsion increases. All these forces only work if we have wind for sailing. But what is actually wind? Wind is moving air. The movement of the air is a result of pressure differences. Cold air is heavier and compresses. That creates high air pressure. Warm air rises and leaves areas with low air pressure behind. To there the air flows from areas with higher pressure. For the sailor it is important to know the direction the wind is blowing from so that he can adjust the sails to it. Close to the wind the sails have to be hauled. The further the bow turns away from the wind, If we bear away, the further the sails have to be eased. So we always have to adjust the sails as optimal as possible to the wind direction, and that's what is called sail trim. But we are not going after the wind we experience on land. We sail with the so-called apparent wind. This is made up of the true wind and the headwind. The boat sails against the air mass in front of it, and that forms the headwind. This air mass is deflected and forms together with the true wind the apparent wind. If the true wind blows from above, like shown here, then the apparent wind comes from further from the front than the true wind. The faster a boat sails, the more the headwind increases, and the more the direction of the apparent wind differs from the direction of the true wind. If the boat stands still, the wind vane orientates itself after the true wind, like shown here. But if the boat is in motion, the headwind comes into the play and the wind vane orientates itself after the apparent wind. And that is the wind we are sailing with. The further a boat bears away from the wind, the weaker the apparent wind becomes. The further it heads up to the wind, the stronger becomes the apparent wind. The apparent wind always comes further from the front than the true wind. Unless you are sailing right in front of the wind, because in that case true and apparent wind coincide. Here is what we can remember. There is thrust by resistance and thrust by lift. The sails always have to be trimmed to the wind direction. If we change the course, the sails have to be hauled or eased so that they stand optimally to the wind. We do not sail with the true wind, but with the apparent wind that emerges out of the headwind and the true wind. The thrust forward by lift is created by the pressure differences between windward and leeward of the sail. The closer we sail along the wind, the weaker is the lift because we lose a large part of the total force due to the lateral force, therefore by heeling and drift. If we sail with thrust by lift and raise the centerboard and do not let work the lateral plan for us any longer, we even drift away. As I said, when we sail on the water, we have to set or trim the sails optimally to the wind, thus the thrust by lift or the thrust by resistance can work. The different courses we sail relative to the wind have different names, and we will learn about these points of sail in the next 4 videos. You will find links to these videos in the video description. And we will start by turning the bow of the boat directly into the wind, and we will notice that we cannot sail like that. Everything I showed in this video you will also find in my book Learn to Sail with Captain Sailnator. There I describe everything exactly and step by step and explain a few more tips and tricks that I unfortunately could not show here in this video. In the next video I will explain the point of sail close hauled. You can find a link to the video in the video description. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you will not miss the next video. You also find a link to my book in the video description below. The book is also available in a colored edition and as ebook, and book and ebook are great to prepare yourself for a sailing course, and you can also repeat during the course what you just have learned. It is written in a practical way, and I think your sailing instructor will explain sailing in a very similar way, and with the book you will understand him better and faster, and then you learn to sail even faster. A link to the book can be found in the video description. I self-published the book and would be glad if you buy it and support me as an independent author. Thank you very much.